Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Welcome to DraftKings Week 3 and the first look video where we're going to take a look at all the different players at all the different positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, for NFL DFS Week 3. I'm going to give you a tournament lineup, or a first look at a tournament lineup. Nothing can be finalized. We don't know what these players' percentages are going to be in tournaments yet. We're going to have that 5 under 5% video on Saturday for you to make some contrarian decisions. We're going to have that conversation on Friday where I spend an hour talking to Twitch chat, going over all their favorite things. But this is the first look. So we're going to build a lineup with a quarterback, stack them with 2 of their pass catchers. We're going to bring it back with somebody on the other team. We're going to try and find a secondary stack that's going to give us an edge on the field, and maybe a third stack, like a player that are on separate teams if we can correlate those 2 players, or they'll probably just be one-offs more often than not. Hopefully that will help you taking a look at how you should be building tournament lineups when you are approaching your lineups on DraftKings. If you're new to the channel, thank you for finding it. If you're a returning viewer of the channel, thank you for coming back. Drop a like on this video. I have a goal. Let's see if we can get 1,500 likes on this video for week 3. We definitely have enough views to do it. All you got to do is click that one little button. If you want to click more buttons, click the subscribe button, click the notifications bell so you get notified anytime I publish new content 7 days a week during NFL season this year. And definitely click that show more button down below on the description so that you can get access to all of my socials, a bunch of different discounts to sites if you wanted to subscribe there, as well as everything else that we do here on this channel, the Listener League and our charity drive to No Kid Hungry. So week 3, let's hit it.
He's a legend.
As I mentioned just a few seconds ago, we are trying to raise $25,000 this regular season for No Kid Hungry. 1 in 6 kids across America are food insecure, and No Kid Hungry does a great job of trying to deliver school breakfasts and school lunches and provide at-home care to kids who just don't know where their next meal is coming from. So if you're playing daily fantasy, if you're watching these videos and thinking about how much money you're going to spend on tournaments, every single dollar helps. Click that description down below. Click the link through Tiltify to donate to the fundraiser that we have. We're trying to raise $25K, and every $5,000 that the community raises, I will match $5K myself up to $25K. So if you guys raise $25K, I'll donate $25,000 myself, making $50,000 raised for kids all across America. And make sure that you jump into the Listener League also. There's going to be a link down in the description. And a link in the pinned comment. So all you have to do is click the things and get yourselves in the Listener League, which, by the way, this week is now going to be bigger. You guys filled it on Friday, so DraftKings said, all right, 2,500 isn't enough, so we're going to pump this up to 3,500 people, 3 max, $10, no rake whatsoever. So get into the Listener League. Guys, Kyler Murray's really good. Who could have predicted that Kyler Murray was possibly going to break fantasy football in the year 2021? Shocking. He's really good. Big upside. Can support 2 pass catchers any day that he has a ceiling game. We'll see if he can post another one here in week 3. Although chat said that the 2 games that he's had, the 38-point outburst against Minnesota and the 34-point apparently pedestrian game he had against the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee in week 1, those are his floor. I disagree that they're his floor, but I think it's a good joke. Patty Mahomes, super good, super high total game this week against the Chargers at home in Kansas City. We know what they can do. You know where to stack with Patrick Mahomes. He is extremely expensive if you wanted to get there. If I'm going to pay up for a quarterback, it's going to be one that's going to add a ton with their legs, not unlike Lamar Jackson, not unlike Hurts, not unlike Kyler Murray. Potential to get you a whole lot of rushes for a whole lot of yards. This game that he had against KC on Sunday night was just absurd, and actually was very efficient throwing the ball as well. And some of those went for, one of them went for a touchdown, but threw 2 very bad balls in the first quarter that turned into interceptions. 37 points for him in the last game. I might skinny stack him, a single stack instead of a double stack with Lamar Jackson. But when he has had ceiling games before, they're never going to throw the ball like 25 times, so it has to be cashed in on touchdowns. I'd prefer a guy that projects to throw like 35 to 50 passes and not have to rely on touchdowns to receivers for my double stack. So a skinny stack might be the way to go with him. Russ Wilson, 7,600, adds a little bit with his legs. He's more of a mobile quarterback nowadays as opposed to a running quarterback at this point in his career, but still big time ceiling spike upside. Matthew Stafford against Tampa Bay, really good defense that funnels you into the pass. So I'm not sure that the Rams are going to be able to keep Stafford at 30 or less passes to satisfy the 53 total in this game, especially with the Darrell Henderson injury from the last week. And Brady going up against that Rams defense. Herbert seems too cheap up against Kansas City. 300 yards in both of his games so far this year. A pass-catching running back, Big Mike, Keenan Allen, Jared Cook, the four places where the ball is going most often through the first 2 weeks, and that should persist as the season goes along. Looking at the sub 5K guys, Derek Carr's had sub 6K guys. Derek Carr's had a great start to the season. 27 and 28 DraftKings points, now squares off against Miami, who just got throttled by the Buffalo Bills. Probably not going to play Ben Roethlisberger. I just don't think that he's got it to this point, and that obviously he's going to win a GPP for you this week. He's not somebody that I want to have as a core play. Does not provide anything with his legs. Has to throw for like 3-4 touchdowns, which, yeah, I think he's going to have a game this year where he does that. I just don't think it's really predictable at all which week he's going to be able to do that. So this is the issue for me, viewing Ben Roethlisberger. Now, somebody whose usage has been extremely positive through the first 2 weeks would be Daniel Jones, the much maligned Daniel Jones at that. 6 rushing attempts in week 1 against Denver, 9 rushing attempts in week 2 against Washington. And that came against 2 of the better defenses in the league. No matter what you think of how Washington has performed through 2 weeks, they're a top 10 graded defense, and they're a top 3 graded defense in the league. At worst, they're a top 5, top 10 defense overall in terms of DVOA by the time the season's over, in my opinion. I could be wrong. If I am, just don't at me. But they're solid and very talented on the defensive side of the ball. But if Daniel Jones is going to run the ball between 6 and 10 times every single game, he now has a ridiculous floor based on the rushing yards. We've talked about this with guys like Kyler, like Lamar, Jalen Hurts, whomever is going to be running the ball an awful lot. Even the rookies for San Francisco or Chicago, if either one of them takes over, you're going to get 8 to 12 rushing attempts from those guys. So you're working in, 6 to 10 fantasy points before they even throw a pass. That's extremely valuable. Just look at the stats that Jalen Hurts has put up through 2 weeks, throwing no touchdowns in week 2. And Tom Brady has something like 9 touchdowns through 2 weeks, and Jalen Hurts and him are essentially tied in terms of total fantasy points per game scored because of how many points they can add on the ground. 10 rushing yards equals 1 fantasy point as opposed to 25 passing yards equals 1 fantasy point. So the fact that they can just pile up yards and fantasy points on the ground, with that upside being with rushing touchdowns, Daniel Jones, extremely good play for me here in week 3. And again, I would be remiss if I did not mention the fact that Andy Dalton suffered an injury this week. He got an MRI. We don't know if he's going to go or not. If he is going to go against Cleveland, I'm probably not going to play Andy Dalton. But if he's out, I'm probably going to have some exposure to Justin Fields, who looks in the box score like he didn't have that great of a game, only 4.5 points as he entered in relief, but he put a ball right into the basket for Allen Robinson and did not come down with it for a touchdown. Things would have looked a whole lot better. But what I like the most is this 10 rush attempts for Justin Fields against Cincinnati in his first game where he played extended snaps. He did he did have a fumble and did cause an interception. But if you're going to give him all of the snaps and a game plan around his skill set, as opposed to a game plan around Andy Dalton QB1, you have the recipe for somebody at 5,200 who could absolutely smash value, a la Jalen Hurts the first 2 weeks with 22 to 29 fantasy points. If he can do anything through the air, and he definitely has the weapons with Mooney and Robinson and Kmet to make that happen. And if he runs it 10 times, gives you a tremendous floor as well. All of that being said, I'm playing Kyler Murray. He's really good at football, and I like watching Kyler Murray play it. So we're going to look for a double stack with Kyler Murray. Love the way that they're using Chase Edmonds so far this season, but I'm not going to use him in this particular lineup. We've talked about building groups with lineup builders. I may use Chase Edmonds in a group with Kyler Murray. They are not diametrically opposed because for Edmonds to smash, he is not going to be taking touchdowns away from Kyler as he does not get those inside the 5 carries. The player who's negatively correlated with him would be James Conner in the backfield. Nook is Nook. Can't believe he only had 4 targets. So like he had 4 targets, 54 yards and a touchdown on the first drive yesterday and then got like nothing the rest of the game. After that first drive, I thought he was going to absolutely smash. Great spot to go back to him here in week 3. I am not going to use him in this lineup. And usually if I have Kyler Murray double stacks, I'm going to make sure that DeAndre Hopkins is in every single one of them. Christian Kirk has looked really solid, but not getting a really solid volume of targets. I am going to go with Rondale Moore. I am going to go with AJ Green as my secondary stack. Rondale not playing all the snaps, but when he's out there, he's running a route and getting targeted. So anytime he's on the field, there is something designed to get the ball in his hands. And as we saw, they're utilizing him once they get inside the 10-yard line. He had one called back that would have been a touchdown this week on a bloop pass. You know, that little jet sweep where they snap it out of the shotgun, they bloop the ball, snap, bloop. And then the running back gets on the jet sweep and goes around. They're utilizing him in that Tyreek Hill manner to catch that ball on the bloop pass and go all the way around. I know that's not the official term for it. That's what I call it. Just leave me be. Now we need to bring back player. You could go with DJ Chark, but Marvin Jones Jr. has had way too many targets, 20 of them through the first 2 weeks. Everybody else is kind of highly variant on this Jacksonville offense. Laviska Shenault getting like 8th worst in the league in terms of average depth of target right now. That needs to change. But Marvin Jones Jr. looking extremely solid, getting targeted down the field, getting targeted in the end zone, getting targeted every time that they have the football. So right now he has, in my opinion, way too high of a floor with access to a ceiling with touchdowns caught in each of the first 2 games. In a game where they're going to have to score a whole bunch of points, and if they continue to throw him the ball between 8 and 12 times a week, 4,900 is just too cheap. So there's our quarterback, double stack, and bring back. We can get to running backs in just a second, but I'm going to start with tight end, which a lot of people like to pay down, and I get why. It's a highly variant position. You don't normally get a lot of targets at it. Jared Cook against Kansas City, 13 targets through 2 weeks. Got a touchdown called back for one of the 784 flags thrown in that Chargers-Cowboys game yesterday. People are going to come down, look at Max Williams, his 7 targets yesterday at 3,200. Ferkser was out, opening up targets for other guys there. Eric Ebron, only 2 targets for him last week. And what's his name? Freiermuth. He, see, it's a joke, chat. Chill out. 4 targets in relief, but now it's to be seen were those out snaps and out targets that he had over Ebron a result of Ebron still recovering from injury, or are they going with Freiermuth as the number 1 tight end moving forward? Yet to be seen. I think there's a little bit of risk here. So when you play these guys, you're not going to extend your lead over the opponent. So like I want premium tight ends that are being used as premium tight ends. Guys like Logan Thomas getting 7 targets against the Giants. Only 3 in week 1, but caught a touchdown. Guys that have that ability to get you double-digit points. Tyler Higbee, 4K. Only got 1 target last week, but played all of the snaps and ran routes on like 80% of his quarterback's dropbacks. Extremely important. Noah Fant, in the absence of Jerry Jeudy, had himself another touchdown, 14 targets through 2 weeks. You want these guys that have access to a really high ceiling. TJ Hawkinson yet to play in week 2 because they are on Monday night, but projects to be one of the highest targeted tight ends on every slate, just based on the fact that there's just no wide receivers that can command the ball on the outside as much as TJ Hawkinson can on the inside. And Rob Gronkowski with 2 touchdowns in each of his previous 3 games, including the Super Bowl. And as long as Tampa Bay is going to keep scoring 4 touchdowns through the air, Gronk has touchdown upside, albeit a low target floor, because that game against Dallas is going to be an outlier in a good way in terms of his target market share and yards from scrimmage. He is mostly going to be used as a red zone weapon. You know who's not? Travis freaking Kelce. Speaking of guys who are really good at football and separate themselves from the position, tight end is a position where there is high separation between the top end guy, the high throttle guy, and the middle of the road. All those other tight ends that I just mentioned as high volume tight ends, Fant, Higbee, Even a guy like Kyle Pitts, they all seem to, they're going to live in like the 8, 9, Logan Thomas as well, 8, 9 to like 13 or 14 fantasy points every week. You know who doesn't do that? Travis freaking Kelce. 26.9 in week 1, 25.6 in week 2, averaged well over 20 points per game last year. As long as this situation that they're in remains the same, he's going to be somebody who has basically like a 14-point floor, 15-point floor, with a realistic expectation and median projection between 19 and 25 points and a ceiling above 30, sometimes reaching into 40. So I'm going to pay up here to a spot where like maybe you get a guy that's going to be 10 to 20% played, because people don't like to pay up for the position, and get me somebody that can separate me from the field on an every week basis. It's much easier to hit a wide receiver like Rondale Moore did last week and has 27 points than to hit a tight end. There's many wide receivers every week or running backs every week that are going to get you to that 20-point plateau, but not a lot of tight ends. So the easiest way to separate in tournaments in 2021 is having a tight end that's going to go off and a defense that also goes off at the same time. Now we got to take a look at running back. Well, I like to correlate, so why not just go with Austin Eckler, who has as high a floor as any running back on a week-in, week-out basis. Yes, I know he had no targets in week 1 against Washington. That was corrected clearly in week 2 with 9 targets, him catching every single one of them, got his bell rung on one of those plays, 22.5 DraftKings points. This is the type of distribution that you should be seeing from Austin Eckler. Somewhere between like 10 and 15 carries, somewhere between 6 and 12 targets every single week. And if Justin Herbert continues to throw for 300 yards a game and he sneaks into the end zone, as in week 1 where he had 2 carries inside the 5, love to see that. Austin Eckler, a great play. I'm going to plug in a cheap defense. Bengals, sure. 4,900 remaining on a per player basis. So let's find us a running back, and let's find us somebody that we can play in the flex to give us a little bit of flexibility here with what we can do. Derrick Henry, fantastic game last week. Absolutely smashed. Broke the slate. If you had him, if you won a tournament or were in the top 1%, you had Derrick Henry on your lineups, and he was underplayed. On weeks where Derrick Henry is going to be chalk, I tend to like to fade Derrick Henry. On weeks where Derrick Henry is underplayed, I like to overweight the field on Derrick Henry. Week 3 looks like it's probably going to be a week where he is going to have a lot of people on him. He is at home. He is favored. It's got a reasonable total, and he has 10 targets through 2 weeks. I think we might have a mole in the building in Nashville. Can't be sure. But when have we ever seen 5 targets a game for Derrick Henry? I asked for 4, but they gave us a bonus one on a per game basis. I'll take it. Possibly a 5-box running back moving forward if the Tennessee Titans are going to get into these shootouts every single week and throw the ball to Derrick Henry. Dalvin Cook has been outstanding. Have to monitor the ankle injury. He ran really well on it this week. 20 plus carries expected every week. I would like to see them run him like 17 times and throw it to him 5 or 6, but like the way that they're going to do things, they're going to hand him the ball a ton. He's got to score touchdowns and get you a bonus in order for him to have like a 30-point game. It's right there for him, especially going up against Seattle, who just got throttled on the ground by one Derrick Henry. Alvin Kamara, they're not targeting him enough. Bottom line, throw him the ball more. That's all I got to say about that. Nick Chubb, 11 carries in week 2. That sucked. Still averaging 20 points per game, and they just don't have any more pass catchers with Jarvis Landry likely going to miss, and Odell Beckham Jr. likely going to miss. They're going to have to lean on their backs a whole lot more moving forward, in their tight end a whole lot more moving forward with Hooper and the Mackey Award winner and Chubb and Hunt and then maybe Schwartz on the outside. But we're going to try and find a little bit of value here. Najee Harris was outstandingly played last week and bailed people out with a 25-yard touchdown to end the day with 19.1 points, right? He got there on one play, but that's why you play him. He's going to be out there for 85, 90% of snaps. He didn't play 100% of snaps like he did in week 1, but nobody's going to play 100% of snaps. If you're playing 80+% of snaps, that's elite usage. And Saquon Barkley kind of being eased in the first 2 weeks based on his carries and his targets. But if we look beyond the box score, Saquon Barkley played over 75% of the snaps for the New York Giants against the Washington football team. He handled the majority of the running back touches for the New York football Giants. If all the wheels are up here for Saquon Barkley, now they have an opportunity against a much softer landing spot than was against Denver and Washington. A game that they should be playing from ahead. They're 3-point favorites. A game where they are has a total approaching 50 points, and we'll monitor that as the week goes on. And Atlanta, who has just not been able to stop the run, even though Tampa Bay was a team that just throws the ball. The Giants are going to be a team that focuses a little bit more on the run, using misdirection and all that read option that they've been using so far with Daniel Jones. Love Saquon Barkley in this spot because he's only 6,500. If he gets back up to the usage that he used to have, and he still has the juice like he had on that 41-yard run, even though he was extremely inefficient on the rest of his runs, again, a really tough defense, the Washington football team, Saquon Barkley has a chance to really take off here. Rocket ship emojis incoming for Saquon in week 3 against Atlanta. We're going to have to find a value flex. That means that we're not going to be able to have a running back in that spot. I'm fine with that. I mean, we're going to have to come all the way down here past the 4K floor for running backs into all of the tight ends and pass catchers. Paris Campbell was out that last week. If you want to go with Deontay Harris and his 2 targets a game, you have at it. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, considering the injury and the very thin group of receivers that exists in Detroit, 4 of them are going to be eligible on Monday night, considering that Terrell the Gazelle is going to be out. He may not play the most snaps, but he's going to play a whole lot of them. I expect more than 4 targets. It's also very possible and plausible that we get another value wide receiver that pops due to anything else to allow us to get to Amon-Ra St. Brown or another value as the week goes on. If you want Kmet, if you want Guyton, if somebody else opens up, go for it. But right now, sitting on Monday in a first look lineup with the amount of snaps and targets that I project for him in this game on Monday night against Green Bay, we'll see how it plays out. Or Khalif Raymond or anybody else on that Lions pass catching core. That gives you a spot where they should be playing from behind, should have to throw the ball, and see an awful lot of targets in a positive game script. So Murray with a double stack and a bring back. Eckler to Kelsey as my secondary stack. A couple of one-offs and a cheap defense. That's my first look lineup. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like. I'll catch you later. Bye.
He's a legend.